What's up, YouTube? It's Richie from Boston. Today's the 28th. It's June. It's 2018. And you are looking at what many people believe to be simply and only ice crystals being produced by a jet engine laying out a stream that lays in the atmosphere for 10, 20, sometimes 100 miles. It's hard to gauge because they're 5 miles up in the sky. And many people think it's completely benign. It's no big deal. It's just how things are. Anybody that calls this chemical layering in the atmosphere released by jet airplanes with the government behind it to control or manipulate the weather are complete and total conspiracy theorists. Nothing to it whatsoever at all. Even when you show them this. The website that's been up for well over a year from Harvard University that has an 8-minute long video starring none other than David Keith explaining to people how they're going to spray the atmosphere to save everyone from global warming. They use the sympathetic music. They give all the answers to questions that nobody's asking. These guys have been spraying the atmosphere for decades. They've ramped it up in the last couple of years. The theories abound what it is they're trying to do. In my opinion, it simply and only goes back to this. Luke 21:25. It's right there. And there shall be signs in the sun, moon, and stars. And in these last days, we find ourselves where they're blocking out the sun. They're telling people they're blocking out the sun, and people still don't believe that they're doing this, even though they have come out and said it completely. Now, I've said this before, I'll say it again. How is it, if this is completely theory, it's just completely laughable and ludicrous, how is it that up to 8 years ago, people knew exactly the method, the material, and the people behind it? We've been talking about Dr. David Keith for almost a decade. We've been talking about loading airplanes up with chemicals and other heavy metals and spraying them in the atmosphere to block out the sun for whatever reason. Think about this. Think about this. How would we know the method, the means, and the people behind it? Do you see what I'm saying? Do you understand what I'm saying? Even though they do this all the time and every day. They've come out and told us. They're not hiding it anymore. And they realize that people are actually helping their cause by denying what it is they're seeing with their own eyes. These guys have come straight out and said they're going to spray the atmosphere. They came out last year. And I bet you that this website has a hell of a lot less views than, I don't know, the NFL website, HBO's website, stuff like that. But let's continue, because this isn't the only one. Everybody uses social media. I did a show, I don't know, maybe about 2 years ago with Anthony Patch, and we were explaining what the Purdue white papers were with the sentient world simulation, which is a long story short, was an enormous test by Purdue University, Sentient World Simulation, a continuously running model of the real world where every single solitary one of us, me, you, and everybody you know, everyone you see on television, everyone you've ever met, had a node, somebody that was representing them. So they basically did an enormous video game, so to speak, of us. And then they gave us every single solitary outcome. They did one where there was martial law. They did one where there was no taxes. They did one where they got rid of the dollar. They did one when there was World War III. They did one when there was peace among everybody. They ran through every single solitary scenario humanity could possibly be faced with, and they saw what the outcome was. Hence, why things like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, so forth, so on, blah, 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 have been free for years. What they were doing is they were introducing events, headlines, news stories, terrorist attacks, and then they were watching our instantaneous reactions via social media. They do something and they watch how many asshats like myself make videos about it. They do something and they watch how many jerk-offs tweet about it. They do something and they watch how many people post on Instagram, Snapchat, so forth, so on, and blah, blah, blah. Social media is a weapon. Social media is destroying humanity. And you don't have to just take my word for it. I've shown you this before. I'll show it to you again. Here we go. This is old news, but in the face of a civilization that has literally had its attention span reduced to that of less than a goldfish, I'll show you again. And it's funny because the entire thing ties directly to the first thing I covered. Once again, Harvard University has established social media platforms are highly addictive. Well, of course they have, because they did this.
There's this enormous mystery waiting to be unlocked. And the BRAIN Initiative will change that by giving scientists the tools they need to get a dynamic picture of the brain in action and better understand how we think and how we learn and how we remember.
So long story short is they used your money to figure out how to best defeat you. Don't believe me? Well, listen to 𝗥𝗲𝗺𝗶.
I want to bring us back to the point that you were making about exploiting consumer behavior in a consumer internet business. You said that this is a time for soul searching in social media businesses, and you were part of building the largest one. What soul searching are you doing right now on that?
I feel tremendous guilt. I think we all knew in the back of our minds, even though we feigned this whole line of like, there probably aren't any really bad unintended consequences. Back deep recesses of our minds, we kind of knew something bad could happen. But I think the way we defined it was not like this. It literally is a point now where I think we have created tools that are ripping apart the social fabric of how society works. That is truly where we are. And I would encourage all of you, as the future leaders of the world, to really internalize how important this is. If you feed the beast, that beast will destroy you. If you push back on it, we have a chance to control it and rein it in. And it is a point in time where people need to hard break from some of these tools and the things that you rely on. The short-term dopamine-driven feedback loops that we have created are destroying how society works. No civil discourse, no cooperation, misinformation, mistruth. And it's not an American problem. This is not about Russian ads. This is a global problem. So we are in a really bad state of affairs right now, in my opinion. It is eroding the core foundations of how people behave by and between each other. And I don't have a good solution. You know, my solution is I just don't use these tools anymore.
Now, I mentioned to walk away from Facebook over a year ago, and then again in January of 2018. And of course, trolls figured out a different reason why I did it, but I've been telling you about this for a long time. A long time. These guys finally coming out and saying that they're destroying the social fabric of the universe. Well, they knew this. They knew this all along, because that's what this is. That's what this is. And the copyright date, or the publishing date of 2006 is old. This study went back far further than this. But it's not a conspiracy theory. Just FYI. And finally, for over 2 years, I've been blathering about D-Wave and CERN and what their actual intentions are. And of course, people just don't believe it, because number one, you need to have a belief in a higher power, in God, in creation. And we live in a science and technology place right now, and people just don't want to believe that. Well, oddly enough, this year, The actual inventor and money guy behind D-Wave, as well as the technical guy behind D-Wave, explained exactly what it is, and people still don't understand it. How much more evidence of all these claims do you need? Or are you just one of those people that are never, ever going to get it? Time's almost up. You can't tell me that you're looking around and this is a better place than it used to be. Did all this technology bring us together like they claimed it would, or has it pushed people apart further? That's an easy one. Drive down the street, walk through a mall, go to a game. People are more worried about taking pictures and selfies of themselves than anything else, and then that's all there is to it. This machine is the machine they will use when CERN, the Large Hadron Collider, finally tears a hole in the fabric of the universe. D-Wave's job will be to stabilize that hole so they'll have a two-way tunnel from the other side. Period. Don't believe me? Well, listen to the guy that paid for this machine.
But this video is going to be able to prove to anyone that you know exactly what these guys are doing with their own word. A lot of people think that Geordie Rose is the inventor of the D-Wave. Geordie Rose is the money man behind D-Wave. This guy, for the most part, is one of the brainchilds.
I have heard this word quantum computing. It's often, people have the misconception that it's some kind of newfangled supercomputer. It's decidedly not that. Quantum computers allow us to access hidden features of nature, new dimensions, and if we can access these sort of hidden dimensions at scale, we could have unimaginable computing power.
Imagine that was true for every single job. So that's what we're talking about here, is a complete and utter transformative change that of the likes of which has never been seen before in the history of humanity, making the Industrial Revolution look like a little tiny blip on the path that humans have taken from when we emerged from the ooze a few billion years ago. We are right on the verge of that transition now. So this guy, Rich Sutton, is one of the most famous people in the academic world of AI.
Now listen. This guy is the guy behind the D-Wave quantum computer, the only quantum computer in the world that is accessing other dimensions, according to what they are telling us. He is telling us that we are on the verge right now. So pay attention, because what he is going to say should shape your entire future.
And like many, when asked, when will this happen, he says things like this. 25% chance within 13 years of this thing that I'm talking about. You know, when you think about what you read on the news, you know, CNN, BuzzFeed, whatever, they're all kind of the same nowadays. Think about how unimportant that thing is that you're reading if this is true.
Now, it's funny because how often do I tell you that politics, sports, the news, these are simply things to keep people distracted, and it works perfectly because only a small group of us actually pay attention to what this guy's saying. There's some people that are with him that want to be on the cutting edge of technology that don't have God in them and don't understand the ramifications behind what it is he's actually saying. Some people with the eyes to see and the ears to hear do understand what he's saying, and he's not mincing words.
Yeah? So what does this have to do with aliens? So Sam Harris, who I quite admire, is a very interesting guy, was reciting this parable at a TED Talk that he was giving, and it goes something like this. So say I'm the President of the United States. So I receive this message from the heavens. So my microwave dish, my SETI dish, finally captures something. And what it says is, in 50 years, or 13 years, we're coming to your planet. You got to be ready. Now just imagine what would happen if that happened. A super intelligent alien race beam down a message to all of us Earthlings saying, we're coming July 13th, 2030, and boy, you better be ready because the mothership is landing right on the front lawn of the White House or wherever you wanted to land on that day. The amount of resources that would be marshaled to try to figure out what to do would encompass the whole world. AI is just like that. So when this thing that I'm talking about happens, it's going to be exactly the thing that you're thinking about those super intelligent AIs. So the one thing I can tell you is they're not going to be like us. So alien means, different. These things that we're building are not going to be people. They might be really smart, they might be really good at all sorts of different things, but they're not going to be like us. They're going to be aliens. And they're going to be, I'm sorry to say, way smarter than every single person in this room in ways that we can't even comprehend. So this, of course, triggers a lot of alarm. One of the guys who talks about this is Elon, who says things like this, like, when you do this, beware. Because you think, just like the guy in the stories, that when you do this, you're going to put that little guy in a pentagram, and you're going to have your holy water out, and you're going to wave it at the thing, and by God, it's going to do exactly what you say and not one thing more, but it never works out that way. So this is an attitude that some are having, this emerging alarmism about the way this is going to go. But these words, demons, doesn't capture the essence of what's happening here. I don't know if any of you are turn-of-the-century weird fiction fans, but there's this guy named H.P. Lovecraft, who's a very famous American weird fiction author. And he espoused a view which is called cosmicism. And the essence of cosmicism is cosmic indifference. So what he was saying is basically, yes, there are these massively intelligent entities out there, but they're not good, they're not evil. They just don't give a shit about you even in the slightest. The same way that you don't care about an ant is the same way they're not going to care about you. And these things that we're summoning into the world now are not demons, they're not evil. Same way that you don't care about an ant is the same way they're not going to care about you. And these things that we're summoning into the world now are not demons, they're not evil, but they're more like the Lovecraftian great old ones. There are entities that are not necessarily going to be aligned with what we want. So this transition is really, really massively important for our entire species to navigate. And going back to that thing that Sam Harris was saying, nobody is paying attention. This thing is happening in the background while people bicker about politics and what's going to be in the healthcare plan in the US. And underneath it all is this rising tsunami that, if we're not careful, is going to wipe us all out.
So you've just heard 3 major quote-unquote conspiracy theories that I've put forth over the last several years, and then you've just heard 3 confirmations in the last year from all the parties involved. So how much more do you need? If you're not there yet, I'm afraid to say you'll probably never get there. But this is your chance right now. They have to tell us their plans. Whether we hear it or not is another thing. Links will be in the description. I'm out.